Welcome back to your favorite podcast of all time, the Flicks Capacitor Podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest, one of my favorite podcasters, slash actors, slash writers. You may know him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Middle, Modern Family, The Orville, Teen Wolf, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and a plethora of other projects. Actor, writer, Shannon McClung.
Oh, gosh, what an incredible intro. I wanted to see how far you were going to go down my IMDb page, Parker.
I actually just have the entire thing here. I was just going to plug every single thing you've ever done.
Like that's all the podcast is just like and Superstore and
somebody needs to right now, guys. Somebody needs to.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna go through a few different things with you, like the strike that's going on. Rowan and I both are fairly bummed about everything that's going on, obviously, and I'm sure as somebody in the industry, you are as well. But before we get into that, we just wanted to ask you, how are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's tough right now because this time of year, coming into November, like in a normal year, we would have been auditioning television actors in Los Angeles, probably in New York and Atlanta as well. We would have been auditioning probably since July. Like typically when your fall season starts up, thinking mainly, shows that are on like that network cycle that premiere in September, like stuff would start filming in July. And so I had a couple auditions right at the beginning for shows that were trying to get some episodes in the can before the strike was going to hit, because we knew it was more than likely going to happen. Right. So I had a few auditions for a couple of sitcoms. And then the next week the strike hit, and that has been it. So there's definitely sort of a creative restlessness with some of my fellow performers out here. But we try to take that energy out to the picket lines to whatever studios, whether it be Warner Brothers or Disney or Paramount. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone is really looking forward to the strike getting settled so we can all go back to work.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good segue into one of my questions for you, or one of our questions for you, which was how has the strike affected you personally as someone in the industry, and maybe as well as your friends that also work in the industry?
So for the most part, I would say 90% of the people that I associate with socially out here, we're all involved in the entertainment industry in some capacity. Whether it be acting, writing, behind the scenes stuff, like everything. Most of the folks that I know, we work in the industry, but within Southern California, there's also other industries that have been affected by the strike, like restaurants. During when things are shooting, you have a lot of restaurant lunch orders coming into a lot of local restaurants. Dry cleaners, like something that I didn't think about, but dry cleaners, a lot of them have been affected by the fact that studios don't have all this laundry from shooting week after week after week. So
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean you don't. I mean, you don't think about it until you're actually in a situation like this. And it's really a shame, because more than anything, I think everybody wants to get back to work. But both I have two older sisters, and neither one of them are in the industry. One's in Florida, one's in Arizona. But they kind of needed me to explain like what the strike from the acting side was basically about, because I think there is a misperception that you might see a couple of movie stars, a couple of TV stars out on the picket line giving interviews to whatever news outlet. And I think, again, that misperception is like, why do these millionaires, why do they need more money? And it's like, well, they're not out there for them, they're out there for people like me. They're out there for the middle class actor, the actor that is trying to get the ball rolling on their career. I mean, when I first started, I mean, my first credit when I got to Los Angeles was the television series House, and the way that residuals are structured. I don't know if you guys know what residuals are, but basically,
Yeah.
when you film a show, when you're on a show, the initial broadcast that's lumped into whatever you make on the day. Anytime that episode is then re-aired, you are paid a portion of what you made. Now, if you get a network rerun, so if it aired, like House was on Fox, a few months later it re-aired on Fox in prime time, so I got a pretty close to 100% of what I made on the day. That's how that residual structure is formed. When it went to cable, when it went into syndication, you would get a portion, and it gradually, with syndication, it gradually reduces over time. But you are still getting, you still are making money, and part of that is because when residuals were set up, it's actors, you know, you can go months, sometimes a year between jobs. And so that was set up to kind of help the actor, but at the same time, networks, even like cable, like, you know, they have advertisers for commercials, and every time a commercial plays on a network, you know, the network is getting paid. So the actors, the writers, the directors, everyone who makes residuals then gets a little bit of that money as well. They're making money off your image, they're making money off your work. So it was sort of established like, all right, that makes sense that you would get a portion of that. Now, with streaming, when I can't remember when that initial negotiation happened. Basically, what happened with streaming is the networks and the streamers were saying, this is new media, so we don't know how we're going to make money off this. We don't know if we're going to make money off this. So what I would have made on a network show, if I do a show on Netflix or a show on Hulu, you make kind of pennies on the dollar. And then you find out how much money the streamers and the studios are actually making off of that. And it's like, okay, we have to come up with a better system, because the working class actor, the working class writer, no one's able to make a living off of this.
Yeah.
So it is challenging, and it's very frustrating as well, because, you know, as you all know, the writer's strike concluded a few weeks ago, and a lot of what they were asking for they did get. Not 100%, but they got close to it. And so we know that the studios can do this. We know that they can pay the money. Right now, they're trying to wait people out, and it's kind of a shitty thing, because it's like, you know, people just want to work. Most of the folks that are in SAG-AFTRA, I don't remember what the percentage is, but most of them don't make a living just off of acting. Like, you have to get a side hustle. You have to get something else that you like to do. And sometimes you find something else that you like to do better, and you transition out of acting, and you do this other career that you've discovered. But the fact that they're kind of making all the money and we're not getting what is owed to us.
Right.
That is the big thing.
Yeah, my
Sorry,
my grandmother.
Long-winded.
No,
Fun
no.
answer.
That's the point. They hear us every week. They're ready to hear somebody else. But yeah, my grandmother, who is an actress, I mean, she's getting older, and so she's kind of expressed to me how residuals have kind of saved her in the last few years. And with streaming and whatever, because she was in the original Beauty and the Beast, and so when that went to Disney Plus, residuals started to change. And she has kind of like talked to me about that, and it's just something that you don't think about. I think a lot of people who don't really understand the industry think actors have it so easy and they get paid millions. You know, they think you're all Brad Pitt and stuff, and you're not. Like, you guys are employees. And so I think it's really important for people to understand that. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Broen, would you like to ask him his next question, or no? You can say no.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let me find it so I can get the exact wording. So what was it that kind of made you like want to be involved in the industry, or want to be an actor? You know, is it something that you always dreamed of as a kid? Like, someday I want to be in TV, in movies, or did it just kind of like gradually happen?
You know, I did a play when I was in like the second grade, third grade, something like that. We did, and it was for family, but we had been reading It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and my teacher at the time had this idea to be like, oh, I bet we could kind of do a little play, do a little presentation of this, and people got
Sure.
cast, and everybody wanted to be Snoopy because Snoopy's the dog and Snoopy's the coolest.
Of course.
Um, I did not get Snoopy. I got Linus. And if you know it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, that's really Linus's story because he takes Sally out trying to wait for this Halloween equivalent of Santa Claus.
Hmm.
Yep.
And the first time like actually performing in front of people, like something just felt right.
Yeah.
And then again, because I grew up in Orlando Orlando, Florida,
Oh.
and at the time there were these rumors that Orlando was going to become Hollywood East because Universal Studios was building a park out there, and there were going to be sound stages, and they did shoot some stuff. I did work at those studios a couple of times, but it never really quite became Hollywood
Yeah.
East. But yeah, I mean, also I'm a little guy. Like I'm 5'6". I'm not a tall dude. I like to play baseball, and everyone at one point hit their growth spurt, and I didn't. And suddenly, my ability to steal bases was drastically reduced because everyone hit puberty and got these, guns that they could, a catcher could make the throw to second before I could get halfway there. But performing was something that I was like, well, I like doing this. Like I was always kind of good at this. And it wasn't until I turned 18 and I got hired at Universal Studios as a performer in the Terminator 2 3D stunt show.
Ah.
That's awesome.
I played John Connor. Like I don't know if either of you have
Wow.
seen that show.
Whoa.
But for me, again, as an 18-year-old, I'm like, this is incredible. And like suddenly
Yeah.
it's, you're getting paid to perform, which at that time was just such a novel concept to me. And then I ended up going to Florida State University my freshman year at school. And so I had to leave, which is in Tallahassee. That's about 4 hours north of Orlando. I had to leave the job that I love so much, but I did end up meeting my fellow geek buddies, Mike Vogel and John Roca. But after my
Nice.
freshman year, I came back to Universal and just kept performing. And as valuable as classroom learning was, there was nothing like learning on the job. And that's what I did at Universal. I mean, I started to get cast in other shows, and occasionally things would shoot in Miami, things would shoot in other parts of Florida, and getting to chat with people who had those on-set experiences. I booked my first television show in Florida it was from the producers of the Blair Witch Project. I don't think it ever aired. But it was largely kind of a featured extra role. Like I was the focal point, but there was no dialogue. It was all narration. And then I ended up booking a independent film. And I don't know if you all know who W. Earl Brown is. He played Dan in Deadwood. You would probably recognize him. He's been in a lot of stuff. But I got to act opposite him and Talia Shire from Rocky in this movie that I worked on 3 days. And everything just like I was incredibly nervous because I was probably 21 at the time and I'd never really worked in front of a camera. But again, it just felt right. But moving to Los Angeles is an intimidating prospect. And at the same time, Universal opened a park in Japan. So I got an offer to go work in Japan for a year. And like over there, you can do is just save money. So I ended up staying 2 years because I was like, well, I'll be able to do this and be able to hit the ground running in LA and not have to panic about how am I going to pay rent? What am I going to do for a job? And while I was there, I met one of the head casting directors for Universal Hollywood. And he basically said, when you get to LA, give me a call. And so I was able to hook up with him. He got me into a few auditions and into their park. And so that's my side hustle now is I perform at Universal Studios Hollywood in between acting and writing jobs.
Wow. Heck
That's
yeah.
awesome. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in anything, or I guess, were you in anything or I guess post-COVID?
Yeah. I co-hosted a special effects show that was in a theater that sat about 2,000 people. Cool. I also work at the Jurassic World section at something called the Raptor Encounter. I dress up like a Pratt-like character.
Like a raptor wrangler.
Yeah, raptor handler, and I'm out there with a raptor for audiences
Cool.
enjoyment. And then recently, they have trained me in over at the Harry Potter world,
Oh,
where I'm one of the Hogwarts Express conductors.
I love it
So you're
there.
there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
That's
went.
awesome. I was
Sorry, go ahead, Parker.
no, you go.
Well,
You
I
go.
went in 2017. I think I went to Universal in Hollywood, and yeah, that Harry Potter area was just magical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible.
I,
It's
I was there in January of this year.
okay.
But like it was winter, so like a lot of the stuff was closed and like they were working on a lot of stuff. But I saw the Raptor guys, so now I know. Now I know it could have been you.
Yeah.
If he was real good looking and not that tall.
He was
That
actually
was
very
you.
ugly and really tall, so maybe.
Yeah,
Not
that was
you.
that was
Not you.
that was Ben. That was Ben. Tough to look at, Ben is what we call him, not to his face, because we can't stand to look at it.
Because you can't look at it.
And I guess last thing before we get into the end of this, which will probably be a long segment, what advice would you give to young actors and young writers that want to work in the industry?
Well, we're in an interesting point right now, especially with writing. Like with writing, you don't have to live in Los Angeles to have a career in writing anymore. You do have to have those connections. You do have to you do have to get connected in some capacity. But during COVID, like I know of a lot of writers who were pretty secure in the folks that they had worked with in the past, to be like, hey, you know what, my wife lives here, my husband lived here, like we're gonna move out of LA and see if I can still do it. And for the most part, a lot of folks have been successful. I know some folks moved to Hawaii who had the means to do it.
Wow.
So the main thing is, if you want to do it, you just kind of you have to work at it. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a very, very challenging industry. There are a lot of folks that are after the same thing that you're after. So there has to be a lot of fortitude, and also you don't want to tie your entire life to this, because there are no guarantees in any sort. I mean, really in any industry, but there's certainly no guarantees in show business. I had a run from 2013 to 2016 where I was booking quite a bit, like 5 or 6 shows a year, to the point that I'm like, oh, this is the ramp, this is the ascendance, this is what life's going to be now.
Yeah.
And suddenly it just hit the brakes, and for no rhyme or reason, my agent and I would have a conversation about like what happened, and he'd just like, yeah, it happens. You're really popular one second and the next you're not. I mean, and it's not like, hey, we don't like Shannon anymore. It's just the things that they're writing, I wasn't fitting into. And so you have to be able to, not just financially, but you also have to be able to mentally weather that storm. And it's really, really hard. But with the advent of TikTok and YouTube, like if you want to act, get together with your friends. You can act, you can make stuff. Like the things you can do on this are more than, more than like the founding fathers, the pioneers of filmmaking could do. So if you want to do something, if you have an idea that you think it's good, write it down, talk to your friends who perform, and try to make it. Because the biggest challenge I think in this industry is starting something and completing it.
Yeah.
I'm writing a pilot right now that I've been stuck on for about a year. Like I got to a point in that script and I'm kind of like, I don't know what happens here. And it's only been within the last week that I'm like, oh, okay, this is what happens. So if that was the only thing I was doing, it would be very easy to be like, yeah, this is clearly not for me.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, for me, when it stops being fun, I think that's when it's time to stop. And thankfully, even though there have been peaks and valleys in my career, it's never not been fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And
Awesome.
I love that you said that everything can be done like on the phone, because in 7th grade, my buddies and I spent all winter break making a zombie movie. And it's like 15 minutes. It's on YouTube. It's like 15 minutes long. And I made the entire thing on my iPod Touch because it had a camera on it. It had the camera on it. So I'd record with it, and then I download the iMovie app and I'd edit on it. And then I'd have like special effects app for like the gun effects and the blood effects for the zombies. And yeah, we just spent, the 2 weeks of winter break making, just like 4 of us making a zombie movie, and then just did everything on my iPod. Everything.
Yeah.
Not once did I plug it into a computer.
That is how you can do it now. And that's also to find out, like, do I enjoy this? Because making stuff, making films, making TV shows, it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And sometimes you don't get rewarded for that. So you you can't go in and try to do it for the money. You have to do it because you love it.
Right.
Heck yeah. Would you recommend people try theater before like screen acting to see if they like it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like local theater?
Absolutely. I think the value of getting on stage, that's the cornerstone for me, at least, of performing. A lot of times what you'll hear when you're learning how to act on stage, the technical parts of like, this is downstage, this is upstage, you learn about projection, speaking from your diaphragm, so grandma in the back row from Nebraska can hear you. I mean, those are all things. It's much easier to bring people down than to bring people up. So when you learn to, like, all right, this is theater, and now suddenly you're on a set with a camera and the camera's right here, it's like, all right, now we bring it down a little bit. Now you work more into the realism of it. But yeah, I mean, I wish I wish I was more into the theater scene in Los Angeles, because theater, that is, for most performers, not all, but for a lot of performers, that's their first love. I mean, as awesome as it is to be on a television set or a film set, there's nothing like the instant gratification of performing in front of a live audience.
Absolutely. No, and I used to do theater. I did theater in high school. I did a couple of shows just at my local theater. And no, you're absolutely right. It's even just in front of people that it's a blast. And especially,
what is your favorite role you played, Broen?
My
role in show.
Junior. Okay. So my favorite role and my favorite show are two different answers.
Okay.
My favorite role was junior year, my first play ever. It was Three Musketeers, and I was Athos.
Oh, okay. So you're the angry guy.
In my first show, I was the grumpy old musketeer in my very first show. And the other two musketeers were my, like, then best friends, in the theater department. And then my favorite show, the show that I had the most fun with just as a whole, was after I'd already graduated high school and I did local theater, and it was Newsies. And it's the only musical I've been in. I didn't tell you that, Parker?
No, that's like the one I thought you were going to say 12 Angry Men. That's crazy.
I also did 12 Angry Men. I played Henry Fonda's character in 12 Angry Men. But that was a high school show. But no, that show sucked. that was a lot of
I hope the
dialogue.
director's not listening, bro.
I have no idea where she is. I have no idea where my drama teacher is. I wish I knew. She was one of my favorite teachers, but she just kind of disappeared. Newsies, I played Finch, which was just one of the kind of background Newsies. If you watch the Broadway show, he's the one with the slingshot, which I still have. I kept the slingshot prop that they gave me.
Nice.
But that was just a local theater one, voluntarily. I did it. It was absolutely free. And I had some friends from high school in it, but most of the Newsies were people that I had just met, and some of them I still talk to today. And that was
nice.
2019 when we did that. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you, Parker? Have you performed on stage?
I have, but not with acting. I'm a musician,
okay.
And so like I've done a few tours and stuff. So I completely agree with you that there is nothing quite like performing in front of people right then and there. It's therapeutic. It's calming yet chaotic. And there's just nothing like it. And I saw Josh Groban and Sweeney Todd a few weeks ago,
Awesome.
and he was talking about the exact same thing. Yeah, he was talking about the same thing. He was saying, I've done. He did like an after show kind of speech kind of thing. I've done The Office, I've done this and this and this, but there's nothing quite like being on Broadway. And I just thought that was
That's
really
awesome.
cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was awesome. Now we get into the big stuff, Shannon. I am so excited to hear your list of your top 10 movies ever made.
Whew,
Bottom up.
Bottom up. Oh man.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, bottom up.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited about this.
Now I need to look at it and see if I need to reorder some things here. Okay, so as Broen and I were talking before we started recording, popcorn, like, people, we love popcorn movies, like, but as a professional performer and writer, like, I feel inclined to include some dramas in there as well, but you would not know that from my 10th pick, because I will say my 10th favorite movie of all time is Avengers Endgame. And
Really?
Nice.
That is the only entry from the MCU. And aside from the fact that was the culmination of, what was it, 11 years of films that led to this huge, finale. It was just watching Infinity War with a crowded theater. And for folks that knew the comics, we had an idea of what might be happening.
Yeah. I knew that movie wasn't going to have a good ending or a happy ending.
To hear the gasps from people who did not know, who were not comic fans, who discovered these characters through the movies, it was sad, but also incredibly entertaining at the same time. It's like watching, after you've watched The Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, watching it with someone that hasn't seen it, that you're just kind of watching their reaction to see what they're going to do. But Avengers Endgame, that was 3 hours of payoff that for things that had been set up from 10 years before. I mean, from Steve Rogers telling Tony Stark, you're not the guy to make the sacrifice play in Avengers, to watch him make the ultimate sacrifice to save everybody. I mean, it was just
full circle.
Just so and it was just so cathartic. And at the conclusion of that battle, it's like, oh my gosh, Tony, like, we all went in thinking Cap's dead. Like Steve Rogers he's going out on his shield. Yes. And to see that not only did it was Steve Rogers who survived, and Tony that didn't. But then in the aftermath of the battle, man, I want to say there was another 40 minutes, half hour movie, like, seeing this enormous funeral. I mean, it was just like looking at a splash page from an X-Men comic, where all these folks, all these heroes have assembled because they're Avengers, to pay their respects to Tony Stark, and then to see that Steve goes out and gets his happy ending. He gets to go back and live out his days with Peggy, but not before passing the shield onto Sam Wilson. Like, it was just so satisfying.
I love it because, and I'm sure you've heard this because everyone has talked about this since the movie came out, that Tony, who was known to be selfish, his last act was the most selfless thing you can do. And then Steve, who has always been selfless his entire life, his last act was finally doing something for himself. Yeah. I mean, the Russo brothers, Kevin Feige, that whole creative team, the actors, the writers whose names are escaping me right now, what they were able to do. I mean, we've not seen that in cinematic history before, and based off of what your feelings are of phases 4 and 5, we might not see it again. But yeah, I mean, so it's crazy that it comes in at number 10, but that would be my 10th pick, Avengers Endgame. Nice.
Now let me see.
So is that your favorite MCU movie then?
It is, just because of the finality of it.
Right.
but
Okay.
I mean, that's something we talk about on the Geek Buddies all the time, is our sort of fluctuating, our revolving lists of the movies that we like. I mean, and we could do it. We could, the three of us could do an entire conversation just about
Oh, yeah.
about the MCU. But even in that conversation, Avengers Endgame, it would probably be number one. Probably.
Nice.
It's up there for me for sure. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
I love Endgame, but Infinity War, I can't get over.
They're close.
Infinity War is my favorite MCU movie. I can't get over. Like I'll never forget seeing Infinity War for the first time. You know,
I mean, the juggling they did with that story, how they were able to tell so many stories happening at the same time. And it's only after that you find out, like, Captain America's in that movie about 12 minutes, 15 minutes. And when you think back to them, you're like, no, he was in the whole thing. But then you go back, it's like, no, I guess he is. And I think this is a testament to those performers and to the casting staff, the casting directors over at Marvel. The penetration that each of those performers made to be so present, even when not being on screen, is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, whoever thought that the Human Torch from kind of the wonky Fantastic Four movies was gonna be Steve Rogers, and was gonna be such an incredible Steve Rogers.
Right.
Yeah. Second chances, I'm saying. Shannon, what's number 9?
Number 9.
I now that we're at Endgame, I'm so excited to see what's gonna come.
Well, some of these movies were gonna be out before you guys were born, I think. So, number 9, I am going to go with Rudy. I don't know if you all have seen this movie.
A long time ago.
I
I haven't seen it in a while, but it's Sean Astin, right?
Yeah, it is not Cuba Gooding Jr.
Oh,
Sean
okay.
Astin.
I'm thinking of what am I thinking of? Radio. I'm thinking of Radio. Sorry, I was thinking of Radio.
I mean, they have 2 of the same letters, and they are football.
They're
they
both
are
football
football adjacent.
Yeah. Okay, Rudy. Okay, sorry.
That is all right.
Nice.
So Rudy
is that the only sports movie on the list?
It is not. It is the only football movie on the list, but it is
Oh!
not the only sports movie.
What? You don't have Little Giants with Rick Moranis?
I was gonna say.
I mean, I saw it in the theaters. And I worked with one.
We haven't gotten through the list yet, bro.
I worked with one of the Little Giants on an episode of Workaholics.
Wow.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Great. That's
so Rudy.
But yeah, Rudy, that came out in 1993. So I would have been a freshman in high school, I think. And that was a movie that I went and saw with my dad. So
nice.
Rudy, if any of your audience doesn't know what the movie Rudy is about, it's about the loose true story about David Rudiger, who was a walk-on player at the University of Notre Dame back in the 60s or 70s. But he was a guy that was pretty diminutive, had no business playing college football, but he got onto the practice squad and just wouldn't quit. I mean, despite the fact that he didn't have the size nor the skill to play, Division I football, he went in and became a part of this squad. And it's just this inspirational story of going after what you want. And my dad, he didn't really get into movies until after I moved out of the house. Then we could start watching movies. Then we would start watching movies together, and he would start to enjoy them. Typically, when we would go to a movie theater, he'd fall asleep. But with Rudy, he stayed awake the whole time. And at the end, I don't want to give away what happens. But at the end, we both stood up and were just clapping.
That's awesome.
And
Nice.
to have that moment with my father is it's just a really special memory. And so that's why Rudy is number 9 on my list. There are some people that accuse Rudy of being a little saccharine, which they would be correct. And then you read about the actual guy, and it's like, okay, so they had to fudge some of the facts here. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't David, it's Daniel Rudiger. But yes, that is number 9. That is number 9 on my list.
That's awesome.
Nice.
All right.
Nice. Number 8.
Okay, number 8. This is a film. I'm gonna pull these up on IMDb just so I can be factual with the stuff that I'm throwing out. But number 8 is a movie called Doubt. This came out in 2008. So again, you guys probably would have been too young at the time. But this starred Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Amy Adams. And I want to say all 3 of them got nominated for Academy Awards.
Wow.
And I think the movie may have been nominated as well, but it's based on a play. And I'll just give you the little log line here. A Catholic school principal questions a priest's ambiguous relationship with a troubled young student. So basically, Philip Seymour Hoffman is the priest at this parish, and he's also in charge of the school. And it takes place in the 50s or the 60s, but there is one Black student at the school, and being the time period, the Black student was having a very, very difficult time, and the priest took a shine to him and just felt like wanted to comfort him. And Meryl Streep's character, who was kind of mother superior of that church, questioned the priest's motivations. And Amy Adams plays a young impressionable nun. And just the acting across the board of this one. Viola Davis is also, I think Viola Davis actually won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She plays the boy's mom.
Man.
The acting across the board in this movie is just stellar. Philip Seymour Hoffman, just such a tragedy to have lost that guy, but the heart that he wears on his sleeve is just so palpable. And Meryl Streep, I mean, again, it seems at this point in her career, there's nothing she can't do. She just plays just this icy nun who might have a point. It's a really interesting film. And again, I won't get into spoilers just in case you guys decide to see it, but it's one of the films that reminds me, like, this is why I like to act.
Wow, that's incredible. It's on my list now because I never even heard of it. So that's awesome.
It's a good one. It's really a good one. Okay, so that was
8. This is now number 7.
I'm feeling nervous.
Okay, so number 7. Number 7 is a Coen Brothers movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So this came out in 2000. Again, you guys.
I was not alive yet.
You may have seen it since. So, oh Brother, Where Art Thou? In the 90s when George Clooney really kind of shot to stardom in ER, like all television actors of that decade, he was trying to make the leap to the big screen, and he had a couple of movies where he led, and one of them was Batman and Robin. But it wasn't until he starred in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou that you actually saw, like, oh, okay, this guy is actually a movie star. Again, this is a Coen Brothers movie. It's based on the Iliad, the Greek story, and it's essentially about he's Ulysses trying to get home to his family. He and John Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson are escaped convicts off a chain gang in the South, trying to get to this treasure that George Clooney has told them about. That he found this treasure, he buried it, and so the 3 of them escape off this chain gang and go on this incredible adventure. And I am not the biggest Coen Brothers fan. I think some of their films, for me personally, just get a little off kilter for off kilter's sake and don't necessarily serve the story. This is not the case with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I mean, it is chock full of just wild characters, and it is just an immensely satisfying film with a trio of comedic performances with those 3 that are just outstanding.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
That's awesome. That one's been on my watch list for a while, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
It's different. but you will. But I think you'll enjoy it. It is really really funny.
Okay.
So is this is your favorite Coen Brothers movie?
Yeah, it goes back
Over.
and forth between it and True Grit with Jeff
Oh,
Bridges, but
not No Country.
I am not a fan of that movie.
Wow.
I am not. I recognize the brilliance in the performances, but the storytelling and some of the choices they made absolutely infuriated me.
Gotcha.
And again,
Wow.
not to get into spoilers, like, but yeah, there were some choices that were made that I was like, "F you, that is a cop out."
That's awesome.
But that is the beautiful thing about film. It is entirely subjective. It is it is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who love that movie. I would never besmirch someone for their affection for a film. It's just not one of mine, despite the fact that Anton Chigurh, Javier Bardem, is chilling and incredible and really announced his arrival to American audiences with that one.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh boy! So this next one, this is another. All these are old movies. I don't know if you guys will have seen them.
Right, number 6.
Number 6. Okay, so this one. Number 6 is a film called Glory. It came out in 1989. This was directed by Edward Zwick, and it starred Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington.
Oh, wow.
He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Morgan Freeman, Andre Braugher. This is another true story, and it is about the first all-black regiment in the Civil War. It is a group of some born free black men and some escaped slaves who got together, and the Union put the first all black regiment together to go in and fight against the Confederacy.
Wow.
Just again, and from a performance perspective, it is just, I mean, Denzel Washington is the one who won the award, but all of those guys just turned in incredible performances. And I want to say I watched this one in history class in school, because it came out in 89. I probably didn't see it for another couple of years. I would have been 12 or 13, but it was also, not being totally aware about the history of our country, and finding out some things through this film that really helped a young mind take a closer look at the things around them. Yeah,
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it is just such a wonderful film. Has one of the most beautiful scores for any film ever, and a finale, a final sequence that will never not bring me to tears.
Oh man!
Wow, that's awesome.
And then not long after that, we got Amistad with Denzel and Morgan Freeman.
Was Denzel in Amistad?
Yeah, fairly certain. Young Denzel, yeah. Let me double check, but I'm like 90%.
No, Morgan Freeman was in it. It was Jaimin Hansu. I don't remember Denzel being in Amistad.
No, he's not. He's not.
Oh, then maybe it was Glory that I watched in history class. Because I swear I watched it. Maybe it was okay. Maybe I have seen Glory. Because I guess I always confused it with Amistad, because I always thought like that movie with Denzel was Amistad, but no, it's. I guess we watched them kind of fairly close to each other. Okay, so I've seen Glory. This is a good one. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so good.
This entire time, I thought Denzel was in Amistad.
Well, you also
and I didn't like, and it
thought that,
and it wasn't that I got him.
Spielberg
I didn't get him
Glory.
No, I knew Amistad was Spielberg. I knew that for a fact. And I didn't get Denzel confused with what? How did you pronounce his name?
Jaimin Hansu.
Jaimin. Thank you. I didn't get him.
And I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. I might be wrong in that. That's just the way I've always.
We're quoting Shannon.
No,
we're quoting Shannon.
Like, I swear, like I would. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, okay. Now I know. I've seen Glory. Okay.
Epiphany. All right, that was
All right,
number
so is this
7,
now
right?
number 5?
Oh no, we're at number
No,
5.
that was number 6. Now we're on number 5.
Woo!
Number 5. Okay, so number 5 would be another movie from the 80s. As you can tell, I am a child of the 80s. But it is Field of Dreams
Oh,
with Kevin
nice.
Costner.
Nice.
Have you all seen this one?
Yeah,
My
it's been a
mom,
minute, but I've seen it.
I'm sure at some point I have, because my mom loves Kevin Costner. So
Yeah,
It
dude,
is.
my mom too. I think it's a mom thing, dude. It's Kevin Costner.
It is again, this is one that I will, equate with my father. It was one that I probably at the time had no interest in seeing. I was much more interested in watching Indiana Jones crack his whip, or Luke Skywalker swing his lightsaber, or Batman beat the crap out of somebody. But then I sat down and watched Field of Dreams with my father. He was actually interested in seeing it, and it's fantastic. And the log line is Iowa farmer Ray Kinsella is inspired by a voice he can't ignore to pursue a dream he can hardly believe. It's Kevin Costner plays this farmer who starts to hear a voice out in his cornfields of, if you build it, he will come. And we find out in the story that he had kind of a tumultuous relationship with his father, that his father passed away before he could ever meet Kevin Costner's daughter, his granddaughter. And how Kevin Costner was raised by a single father on stories of baseball players. And the most notable being Shoeless Joe Jackson, who played for the White Sox back in 1919, something like that. But it is, again, another just really, really wonderful film. Ray Liotta plays the ghost of Shoeless Joe Jackson. James Earl Jones plays an author that Kevin Costner sort of recruits on this epic road trip that he goes on, trying to follow the directions that this ethereal voice is giving him. And it's another film that will make a grown man cry on several occasions.
I always mix that movie up with For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. You seen that one?
Okay. That was Sam Raimi, I think.
Yeah. Right? Weird. Sam Raimi did a baseball movie, like super weird. And I always mix those two up because it's Kevin Costner and baseball. But that one I think is definitely the better movie.
It is. Well, and also Kevin Costner did another baseball movie right before Field of Dreams called Bull Durham, where he played a minor league pitcher. And when the studio went out to people, they went out to Costner, and I feel like initially he passed, or maybe his team wanted to pass, because they were like, he just did a baseball movie, like he can't do another baseball movie. But then you find out how vast, like, just because they both involve baseball, they are vastly different stories. But it's basically a guy, making peace with his father.
That's awesome.
Nice. Heck yeah.
All right,
Top
so that was
4.
5, right?
Yeah.
That was 5.
All right, so number 4 is The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh. I just bought that on 4K and rewatched it. Oh my god.
That's incredible.
Phenomenal movie.
I hadn't seen that movie until last year. And it blew
my
mind. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Blew my mind.
Damn, I watched that movie in middle school.
Yeah.
And that was one that my mom showed me. It's weird because like I mentioned this to Shannon earlier, but growing up, my dad was the movie guy. Rather than going out fishing or going to catch a game, we'd go to catch a movie. That's how we bonded. We watched movies. He would show me a movie. And of course I have, I have a backlog of just all the movies that my dad has shown me, throughout my life. But the few that my mom has shown me, the few movies that my mom has shared with me are like some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shawshank's one of them. That's awesome.
And Shawshank's one of them.
Just yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful movie that it was nominated for Best Picture, and it was the same year as Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump.
In Forrest Gump, yeah,
Wow.
Forrest Gump won.
Which Forrest Gump went on to win. And in the immediate aftermath, a lot of chatter in critical circles was Quentin Tarantino was robbed. It should have been Pulp Fiction. And then after that, it was like, nope, Tarantino wasn't robbed. Frank Darabont was robbed. Because really, if
Yeah.
you look at all of these movies, like The Shawshank Redemption is the best film. Like, I don't know if I necessarily
it's
agree
the
with
highest
that, but
it's the highest rated movie on IMDb with like 9.3 stars out of 10.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's another Morgan Freeman. Is that the third Morgan Freeman film I've got on here? So clearly I'm a Morgan Freeman fan. But yeah, I mean, The Shawshank Redemption, it's one of those movies where it could be, I could be in the middle of my day at home, and if it's on, I have to sit down and start watching it.
It's a remote drop.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? A remote drop?
A remote drop.
I heard
a remote control drop. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're channel surfing and then you see something, drop it, and it's like, all right.
Gotcha.
I heard that it
I thought
didn't
you meant like
do-
working remotely, and I'm like, I don't understand. Oh, okay, now I got it.
I've heard that it didn't do very well at the box office, right? But kind of blew up when it
did
came out on
not.
VHS or something like that.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's the
crazy.
equivalent of, you know, going on to Netflix and seeing a movie that's been out 8 years suddenly be the number one movie. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with the release strategy that just it just didn't really play in a lot of theaters. But once it hit VHS and then once it hit cable, everybody started watching it and raving about it.
Yeah, no, and it has one of the most satisfying antagonist defeats. You know, seeing an antagonist, I'm not going to spoil, but just seeing an antagonist sink that low to where they come to that point. It's just it's, I hate to say it because of how dark it is, but it's very satisfying.
Yeah. There is a level of catharsis to seeing the bad guy be defeated.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and sinking that low, the lowest you can sink.
And Clancy Brown, who plays the guard, the main guard, the big
Mr. Krabs.
That
So
guy is in everything.
And he's so incredibly talented.
He has
I wrote on an animated series a few years ago where he was one of the voices.
Wow.
And to watch him work, typically like with animation, before COVID, what would happen is the writer of an episode would get invited to the recording. So you would go in and watch all the performers come in and sort of individually record their lines. A lot of shows don't record casts at the same time. But to go in and watch Clancy come in, look at his sides, and just deliver this incredible. He played our bad guy as well. Take one look at the sides and just deliver this incredible performance. It's like, man, that is there's talent that an individual has, and there's talent that an individual can learn. This guy, that is just in him. Like his ability to read something and deliver just an impeccable performance, and a super nice guy as well. Really, really friendly.
Oh man,
that's awesome. That's good to know because he plays a really good mean guy. So that's good to know.
Oh, he's a great bad guy.
Yeah.
All
what a good
right, so
number 4.
What a great number 4.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
So these next 3,
top 3,
I know you guys have seen. So number 3 came out in 1985. The first adventure of Marty McFly and Dr. Emmett Brown, Back to the Future.
Oh,
well,
that's my favorite movie ever made.
I've never heard of that one. Never heard of that. Wait, what do they use to make time travel possible? A flux capacitor? That's a weird name.
What was it supposed to be called? It was like Spaceman from Outer Space or whatever it was.
Spaceman from Mars. Spaceman.
Oh yeah, dude. It's crazy because it's such an incredible title.
Executive.
Yeah.
Which,
I got to see.
No, go for it.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that I got to see it on. We're so.
There's
definitely
polite.
A lag here.
We're so polite.
The rest of the episode is going to be, no, you go ahead.
I saw it on stage as well like a month or two ago. Because it's on Broadway right now.
Oh,
And
how is it?
it's good. The music isn't incredible, but you go for the DeLorean, and
Yeah.
are you the DeLorean goes above the audience and does a full 360.
Awesome.
It's really crazy with the actors in it. And so seeing my favorite movie live on stage was like one of the best experiences of my life. So it's my favorite movie. Great pick.
It's in my top 5 for sure. It's definitely in my top 5.
How do you feel about the sequels?
I mean, they're never as good as the first one. They're never as good as the first one. But I think that the sequels tell a good story.
Yeah.
But the idea that Doc would come back to get a character from the past to change something in the future to then bring them back to the past, the logic's not really there.
Yeah.
but it's still an enjoyable romp. When Back to the Future 3 came out, the day before, again, I would have been in 6th or 7th grade. My oldest sister, who is about 5 years older than I am, she came and got me out of school early because they were doing a special Back to the Future back-to-back screening.
Oh,
where you
wow.
would watch Back to the Future 1 at 8 p.m., Back to the Future 2 at 10 p.m., and you would watch Back to the Future 3 at midnight.
Wow.
And that was
awesome.
the first time I'd ever seen like a midnight movie, and being taken out of school early to do it. Like we had a great time, and they gave us a commemorative t-shirt that did not fit me, but I wore it like a nightgown to school the next day, being like, hey, look at what I got to do yesterday.
That's an awesome experience. That's crazy.
Awesome.
It was great.
And they go in Back to the Future too. They go to the future on my 16th birthday.
Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, that's tomorrow.
Which is technically tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. That's awesome. All right, sorry. Yeah, number 2.
Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back.
Woo!
Nice.
So again,
yes, sir.
Child of the 80s, Empire Strikes Back. Watching the original Star Wars and watching the hugely satisfying conclusion of they blow up the Death Star, Darth Vader's launched into the outer space abyss. Of course, the second one, despite the title, they're gonna do it again. No, they don't. The bad guys win, and they leave the audience on one of the biggest cliffhangers in the history of cinema.
Yep.
That this awful villain who we've come to despise over 2 movies is the father of our hero. How could this happen? It was the type of movie that when I was younger, I think Return of the Jedi was probably my favorite, because it's like, well, there's Ewoks and there's a green lightsaber, and again, the good guys win. But as I've got older and appreciated more the nuances, I still will not hate on Return of the Jedi. I love Return of the Jedi.
Oh, absolutely.
But you appreciate the nuances of The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, the real human connections that you see between Han and Leia, between Han and Lando, and between Luke and this puppet that Frank Oz breathed so much life into, that whenever I see CGI Yoda, I'm just like, it's not him. It's not him. You got to need the puppet.
Yeah, absolutely. Except for the puppet in Phantom Menace. That one.
Yeah, that one's a little rough. Young Yoda's rough.
That one freaked me out as a kid.
Well, it was like they perfected some of the craft. They perfected some of the build. And so the ear wiggle that he had in Empire, which were the limitations of what the puppet could do, suddenly they perfected. It's like, oh, it doesn't look natural. Like that ear wiggle we sort of associated with, just behavior that Yoda had.
Yeah.
So yeah. Phantom Menace Yoda.
And you want
the dreams.
You want to know a funny story? So obviously I'm too young to have seen Empire in the theater because my dad was like 12 when it came out, and like 11 or 12 when Empire came out. But he told me that when he went to see Empire opening day with his family, like his whole family went to go see it, they walked into the theater and they had a giant cardboard cutout of Yoda's hut with Yoda sitting in front in the theater lobby. And my dad and his and my grandparents went up to the usher guy and was like, and they were like, "Hey, what's this?" And the usher, he just goes, "Oh, that's Yoda." And they're just like, "Okay, I don't know what that means." And then they were watching the movie, Yoda shows up, not revealed to be Yoda yet, and my dad is like, "Oh."
No!
Because you're supposed to think he's just this little hermit that's being annoying, that's bugging Luke, when really he's just testing his patience the entire time.
Wow.
You know, like, looking, found someone you have, I would say.
Oh, spoilers before there were spoilers. Oh
I
my
know,
gosh.
like, what an idiot usher.
Yeah. So Shannon, right here, we need the scoop. Do you think you should watch Star Wars in
Ooh.
chronological order or release order?
For a first-time viewer.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, oh man, that's tough because the leap in technology that the movies make in between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, I feel like going in not knowing that, I feel like that might be too hard a right turn for someone. However, I do think watching Rogue One before Episode 4 is absolutely what you should do.
For a first-time viewer?
Maybe.
So are you saying the first movie you'd watch is Rogue One? Like you're showing someone Star Wars for the first time, or?
That's a tough question, guys.
See, and that's why that's why I want more than one kid. That's why I want multiple kids so that I can show my first kid release order and then show the next kid chronological just to see the difference, just to see how they react.
Are you going to tell them that they exist just to know what the actual way to watch Star Wars is?
Yeah. Because I growing up with a dad who loves Star Wars, I don't have the experience of watching it for the first time because it was just always there. It was like a family member, you know. You don't remember the first time you met your grandma, but you know she's always been there. You know, so I don't remember the first time I watched Star Wars, and because of that, I've always known that Darth Vader was Luke's father. I always knew that Anakin became Darth Vader. So there was never any sort of twist to Star Wars with me, and that's why I'm going to be so protective of my children with that, because I want them to experience that. I want them to experience.
That's a hard spoiler to keep away from your kid, like with social media and how big Star Wars is.
Well,
that's tough.
I'm gonna show it to them, you know, when they're still fairly young. You know, like,
Yeah.
but at like 7 or 8, you know, when they're at an age where they can process it, but still where they're guarded, because they're not gonna have social media at that age.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a tough
well, Shannon, I'll say this: I had not seen a Star Wars movie all the way through until 2020. Okay, and the world is ending. We have no idea what's happening, so I decide I should watch Star Wars. I start chronologically. I start with The Phantom Menace, and I also, because of that, I watched Solo before meeting Harrison Ford's Han Solo. So I think that might be one of the biggest reasons to watch in release order. But I'll just put that out there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think release order is probably the way to do it. And with Marvel as well, I think wrelease order is probably the best. It would be a fun experiment to take someone who's never seen a Star Wars and be like, all right, let's see how you digest this. I mean, we talk about this on Geek Buddies all the time, how when the prequels came out, like, we weren't big fans of those because we grew up with the original trilogy.
Right.
But younger writers and younger friends that we have now they were brought up on the prequels. So they're like, no, the prequels are so much better. And like the kids that saw the sequel trilogy are going to think that Rey, Finn, and Poe are so much cooler than, you know, Luke, Han, and Leia. So I imagine it's just kind of, how you what age you are when you discover it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Interesting.
but I
Very
am the prequel. I am the prequel generation, and I still 100% have always preferred the original trilogy. I guess that does kind of have to do with my dad
Yeah.
raising me on the original trilogy, but
Plus,
like,
those three are like your favorite movies ever made, so you're
yeah.
like a little biased, you know?
But
So I don't know. I
well,
think
how?
I think really
But what do you mean? Because never mind. I won't get into it.
I just wanted to see. I'm sorry. I'm sorry
You're like well, you're
for
biased because
sparking.
they're your favorite movies. It's like, exactly, they're my favorite movies. I like them better. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so are we at number
All right,
one now?
are we at number?
We're at
I think
number
this is
one.
number one, right?
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
drum
Holy
roll.
shit, we're here.
And
Oh my gosh, what if it's like so underwhelming? It's like Iron Man 2, you know? Or something.
That's such a Iron Man 2.
I had a little bit. I couldn't sleep a couple nights ago, so I'll typically go lay down on the couch in the living room and turn on Disney Plus, and that is actually the movie that I put on was Iron Man 2. Is it the worst Iron Man film? Yeah. Is it the cinematic pariah that it's been led to? That people have been led to believe? Not really. I mean, there are very few.
It's not
movies
that terrible.
Yeah,
No,
there are very few MCU
like
movies that are awful.
Yeah, I like Iron Man 2 because there's a Iron Man villain and a Tony Stark villain.
There you go.
Mm.
And Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer is fantastic.
He's awesome.
We hope he comes back.
And
in
it's
some
got one of the
capacity.
best.
He's coming back in Armor Wars.
We'll see if that one gets made.
Well, it's gonna be. They said it's gonna be a movie now. Rather than
They're saying a lot of stuff these days.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. It also has one of the best Iron Man suit ups in the entire MCU.
Ooh, the
at the
case.
racetrack.
I mean,
so,
the briefcase.
Suitcase into suit is pretty cool. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
All
the
right,
real
anyway,
number one.
All right.
We digress.
Real number one is the first adventure of Dr. Henry Jones Jr., Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh man.
Incredible.
Oh my god.
It goes back and forth between Raiders and Last Crusade, but I've been on a Raiders kick for about the last year. Probably
Raiders
because
is my favorite of the trilogy.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, emotionally, Last Crusade is a more satisfying story because of his connection with his father.
Of course.
But watching Harrison Ford make exposition interesting with the leitmotif of the arc coming up. I mean, it's just so well done. It is just so immensely satisfying. And one of the things that I love about, especially about the first movie, but definitely the first three, is the stunt work.
Yeah.
It's guys actually doing this stuff. That was a guy, I believe his name is Vic Armstrong, being dragged behind a truck. I mean, that stuff, like, they actually did it. It's a tangible world that you can touch. And the dynamic between Indy and Marion Ravenwood. I mean, Harrison Ford and Karen Allen, the incredible supporting performance of John Rhys Davies. Belloc is probably, I mean, I do think he's probably the best Indy villain, though I really did like Mads Mikkelsen's character, and even though the movie wasn't the best.
I still haven't
Raiders of the
seen
Lost Ark.
Dial of Destiny.
He still hasn't seen it.
It just, I don't know. I was just like, do I really want to see this in the theater? Like, I don't know.
It is a better conclusion to the character than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
And that's fair. But it's also, I don't know if that's saying much.
I mean, it's not. But it leaps the bar, even though it's not a high bar. And again, the ending of Last Crusade, the four guys riding off in the sunset. I mean, you can't really beat that as an ending. But as sort of a farewell story to to Henry Jones Jr. Dial of Destiny, it does the job. There's plenty in there to like about it. But
Okay.
Raiders
I'll watch
of
it
the
when it
Lost
comes on
Ark,
Disney.
yeah, I mean, I think it's coming out on disc in December, so I imagine Disney Plus will be
it's coming soon.
in 2024.
And I'll absolutely watch it and be fully into it. I was just like, I don't know if I want to sit in the theater for this.
Yeah. Indiana Jones, like that trilogy was my Star Wars when I was a kid. Like those were the movies that I was obsessed with.
Right.
And Temple of Doom was always my favorite for some reason as a kid. I even wrote Harrison Ford a letter to let him know that was my favorite, and I didn't understand why other people hated it. And I was like 8. And yeah, I was just like, I don't get it. Why, whatever. And yeah, I don't know. Indiana Jones is probably my favorite fictional character. Top 3 for sure.
He's great.
Yeah,
and so
he's
that's
up
an
there
awesome
for
pick.
me as well. I mean, the amount of movies that were inspired by Raiders, you can't count them all. I mean, and no one has been able to capture that magic. They've done it with video games, with Tomb Raider and Uncharted,
Right.
But just that, the adventurous spirit of going out and trying to find this thing and knowing what this ultimate evil could do if they got a hold of it. And you hear people make the argument that the Indiana Jones is ultimately unnecessary to the movie because the moment the Germans open it up, they're toast. But it's still such a great ride, and it was just the perfect marriage of direction, writing, performance, and score.
Yeah, and he's just such an interesting character.
Have you ever been in the Indiana Jones stunt show? Or no, that's at Disney, right?
That is at Disney in Florida.
That's
I've known people who have done it. I've known many people who have done it, but no, I never did that one.
You could be the guy that's in the audience. I could so see you doing that.
Is there a shill in the audience? Is it or an assistant director or something? I haven't seen that show in a long time.
It's like they're like, can we get an audience member for this part? And everybody thinks he's like an actual audience member, and then they like beat him up, and it turns out he's one of the people. Could totally see you doing that.
Well,
what a great list! That's an awesome list. I hope not. I'm sorry, but yeah, what a great list.
Yeah,
that was Raiders is number 1. I did not expect that. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And there are so many movies that I could swap out with other movies.
Sure.
I literally went down my Blu-rays and was trying to well, what do I think? Can I get to 10? It's like, oh no, you got to 25. And there's so many just straight dramas as well and there's very little straight comedy on this. I have a whole comedy section.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Next episode we'll do your top 100 just to make you feel a little bit better. But thank you, Shannon. Seriously, this was so incredible. I'm such a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure anybody listening that doesn't know about the Geek Buddies will definitely head over there at some point. You definitely should. It's one of my favorite podcasts. And Shannon, where can they find you? And what are you working on? And what do you want them to know about you?
So you can follow me on social media on Twitter at Shannon_McClung and on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. I do 2 podcasts a week, the Geek Buddies we do. Right now we do our main show, and we are also reviewing the 2nd season of Loki on Disney Plus. The 3rd season, one of the shows I write on is Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City. The first 2 seasons are on Netflix, and our 3rd season is coming out on Wild Brain. That's our studio. It comes out on their YouTube page, but all those shorts will be going to Netflix at some point. And yeah, I've got a couple of animated series that are in the can that don't have release dates yet. And in terms of acting, the last thing I was on was the season premiere of the reboot of Party Down that was on Stars earlier this year. It was on Stars. But yeah, I mean, and until the strike gets settled, I will have no further on-screen credits to speak of.
It is what it is. You just gotta deal with it, I guess, for now. But thank you so much, Shannon,
Yeah.
for doing this. Seriously,
Yeah, this is great.
This was awesome. Appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys. That was fun.
Anything else you would like to say to what we call the Pinheads, our listeners?
Oh my gosh. Anything else? Take the pens out. Guys,
Anything.
Take
Well,
the pen. Take the
that's
pens
that's
out.
Marty's band. That's Marty's band in Back to the Future, the Pinheads.
Oh, I immediately went to I immediately
No,
went to
not Hellraiser. Not Hellraiser. Not Hellraiser.
Okay.
I mean, it could be.
Okay, so are the pens is it PIN or PEN?
Oh.
I think it's PIN.
I think
It's probably
PIN.
PIN.
Yeah.
It's probably PIN. But
I don't
no,
think it's
now that you're
Pinheads.
saying that. I'm now remembering when he says to Huey Lewis, we're the Pinheads.
It's like, I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.
Yeah, okay, so Pinheads, did you know that Huey Lewis, when they were shooting that, was actually nervous about that line because of he was worried that would come across the wrong way, him as a steward of rock and roll.
Huh.
He expressed concern to Bob Zemeckis about that.
Wow. Fun fact.
I heard that he was. Go ahead.
Well,
bro.
you mentioned Huey Lewis, and I was gonna say my dad had a boa constrictor named Huey that he named after Huey Lewis. Has absolutely no important value to what we were talking about, but it just ADHD brain got me going.
That's good to know. I heard. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that Huey Lewis was offered Danger Zone for Top Gun, and he turned it down because he was like, it's gonna be bad for my brand, like I can't do this dumb plane movie.
I heard
and
I heard the
Toto
same
was
thing.
also offered Danger Zone.
I didn't hear the second one, but I did hear. I feel like I heard that about Huey Lewis. Though.
They should have pitched to him
Yeah.
the volleyball scene, and then he would have been like, okay, yeah, I'm on board.
You don't want to do this movie? Well, thank you so much, Shannon. We appreciate you. And go listen to the Geek Buddies if you haven't. Wait, what's your other show that you do?
Oh well, we're doing 2 episodes of the Geek Buddies a week right now. We do our main show and the
Gotcha.
Loki reviews, yeah.
Gotcha.
I was confused. I thought you were saying you did 2 shows, but thank you so much. We appreciate you. And Broen,
Love you. Bye.